Hey yo, welcome back to another Hood, Outlaws and Legends video. I'm currently in matchmaking purgatory. I've so far been able to complete one match the night of early access release, so I figured I could take this time to go over some of the core movesets of each of these characters, help you out so that way when you actually get into PvP engagements, fighting the enemy team, you aren't pressing the wrong buttons, doing the wrong thing with your character, because truthfully the game doesn't do the best job of kind of painting each character's moveset. And it's not anything super complex, but just a couple nuances that I think will be very helpful to you as you're learning the game and progressing. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of each character, you have to learn this one basic rule, very fundamental to how you're going to be approaching PvP combat. The Ranger, the Hunter, your long-range characters, they can dodge, but they can't block. Your Brawler, your Mystic, your melee-type characters, they can block, but they can't dodge. So these defensive maneuvers are tied to the same button. Dodging and blocking is the same button. So what you need to do is you need to be careful, because it's early days. You're going to want to be trying out all the different characters, see what you vibe with. But just remember, you can't be dodging around, or you can't be blocking with these different characters. You have to know the role you're playing and what your defensive maneuver is. As I can tell you, my first game, I thought I can dodge with Mr. John here, and I got my ass beat. The melee combat in the game is very simple. It's not super complex. You're not doing any combos, but the type of character you're playing is going to change what you have access to. So at its core, you have a light attack button and a heavy attack button. But a character like Hood, the Ranger, he can only do a light attack chain, a 2-hit light attack chain. Now, you do have a sprint attack, but his sprint attack is tied to the light attack. So you have a light sprint attack. The same rules apply to the Hunter. She doesn't have access to a heavy attack, but does have light attacks that are actually a little bit better than the Rangers, because she can continue chaining her light attacks, whereas assuming she has stamina, whereas the Ranger, he has kind of like a stop-start 1-2 kind of animation. And the sprint attack is also a light attack interaction, and you're going to have to kind of compensate for that role because there's going to be no active hitboxes during it, but you will be able to chase people down a lot easier with it. And just a quick note, if you ever already noticed, you have a single shot on your crossbow, but if you charge it, you can do 3 shots. So definitely something to keep in mind, definitely useful. One last tip about the long-range characters' melees is that there is no dodge attack. So when you do a dodge, there's going to be a decent amount of time before you can perform another action. So what you should be using the dodge for is to avoid attacks and to get more distance for yourself, because you're really not going to be trying to get into these melee scraps. Now you guys probably already know from the tutorial that the Brawler has both light and heavy attacks. His light, and also can actually chain that into a heavy. So if you do a light into heavy, it actually chains quite nicely together. You can actually do multiple of these too, assuming you have the stamina, of course. You can always pop your ult to do more of these type of chains. But you're never going to want to do it in reverse. You're never going to want to do a heavy into light. It's just not possible, not smooth at all. Now for his sprint attacks, he actually has both variations. So you can do a running light attack, which is nice and quick, and the heavy sprint attack, which is a very satisfying animation to hit and also closes the distance pretty well. Now on to the Mystic. He has light and heavy options just like the Brawler does, but there are way more nuances with his moveset that I found. So for starters, he can throw a max of 3 light attacks before he has to run. You can see here I had plenty of stamina to throw more, but it just doesn't allow. You're going to be stuck in that recovery. Now his heavy attack can't really be chained into anything, but it's a nice long-range move, does a good amount of damage as well. But you can combine it with the light attacks. So you can throw a light attack into a heavy for a nice, very smooth animation. The heavy comes out pretty quickly. And remember, I told you can do up to 3 light attacks. So you can do a light into heavy, but you're going to want to mash that heavy input or buffer it. And what I mean by buffer it is that as you're completing your second animation, you're already pressing the heavy attack button to make sure it comes out properly. Now, unfortunately, the 3 chain rule also applies where you're not going to be able to do heavy. That's how long it takes for the heavy to come out after the 3rd chain. So at max, you can do 2 lights into a heavy for a nice little combo. Now, for his sprint attacks, he does not have a light attack option on his sprint. So you're not going to want to try and do this because it actually just stops your momentum completely and he just starts a normal light chain. But his heavy sprint attack has really nice range and a really cool animation. So just make sure when you're trying to chase somebody down with a sprint attack, you don't do a light attack because it's just not going to do anything for you. Use that heavy. I want to make a quick note about the lockdown system. Now, obviously, it's not a requirement to be locked on to somebody to perform an offensive action, and even blocking, as you see here, I can block. But you do need to be locked on to somebody if you want to perform a parry, and that's really going to set you apart as a melee player. And I think newer players, people who just pick up the game, are going to have this tendency to play a lot out of lock, sprinting around, just getting up close to somebody and mashing buttons. We all do that when we first pick up a game, just press as many buttons as possible. But again, what's going to set you apart is combining the out-of-lock gameplay with the precision of being locked on. And I'll give you the example right here. So you see my cursor and even the reticule is on this further away target. But if I press an attack button, I just naturally gravitate to the enemy closest to me. And I have to tell you, these team fights get extremely messy. People are just running around all over the place. And let's just say that guy back there was actually low health and you wanted to finish him off. You just fucked up your kill because you weren't locked onto him. So instead of swinging, and even if the AoE could have killed that guy, you wouldn't have gotten close enough to him because your guy just all of a sudden just magnetized to somebody else running away. So again, I think there's a misconception that you're not as mobile by being locked on, and that's definitely true initially, but you can actually cancel the locked on system by just pressing sprint. And I still was holding the L2 button when I did that, but I'm holding L2, I'm locked on, and I just press sprint, and all of a sudden I'm out. And I can reposition. So again, setting yourself apart as a melee fighter is going to be combining out of lock gameplay with locked on gameplay.